What if I told you that one of the richest and most powerful nations in the world has no oil, no gold, no natural resources, and is smaller than most major cities? This is the story of Singapore, a tiny island that refused to stay small. In 1965, Singapore was expelled from Malaysia. It wasn't a celebration. It was a crisis. The country had no natural resources, no army, high unemployment, ethnic tensions, limited drinking water, imported from Malaysia. Many experts predicted failure. The prime minister at the time, Lee Kuan Yew, even broke down in tears during a press conference. He knew the road ahead would be brutal, but he also knew one thing. Survival was not optional. Instead of relying on resources, Singapore decided to rely on people. The government focused on three key pillars: education, clean governance, economic openness. They built world-class schools, invested in technical skills, made English the working language to connect globally. Corruption? Zero tolerance. Public officials were paid competitive salaries to reduce temptation and ensure integrity. Foreign investors were welcomed. Taxes were competitive. Infrastructure was world-class. Singapore positioned itself as the gateway between East and West, and the world responded. Singapore developed one of the busiest ports in the world. Its airport became a global benchmark for excellence. Global companies moved their Asian headquarters there. Finance, shipping, technology, biotech, all began to flourish. Public housing projects transformed slums into modern communities. Today, over 80% of Singaporeans live in government-built apartments. Clean, organized, and high quality. The country became known for safety, efficiency, discipline, long-term planning. Strict laws? Yes, but also stability. And stability attracts growth. Singapore proved something powerful. Natural resources are not destiny. Geography is not destiny. Size is not destiny. Vision is destiny. Leadership is destiny. Long-term thinking is destiny. While many nations chased short-term politics, Singapore planned decades ahead. It invested in innovation, smart city technology, green spaces, sustainable development. Today, it consistently ranks among the top countries in GDP per capita, education, safety, ease of doing business. From third-world conditions in the 1960s to first-world status within one generation. That is one of the fastest national transformations in modern history. Singapore's story is not just about skyscrapers. It's about discipline, unity, meritocracy, and fearless leadership. It reminds us that you don't need to be big to become powerful. You don't need resources to create wealth. You need clarity, strategy, and leaders who think beyond today, from a struggling island to a global giant. This is Singapore. But the story doesn't end there, because survival was only the beginning. Singapore understood something most nations ignore. Disciplined compounds. Every policy was calculated. Every reform was deliberate. Nothing was left to chance. When others saw vulnerability, Singapore saw opportunity. Its location, once considered small and insignificant, became one of the busiest trade crossroads on Earth. Ships from every continent passed through its waters. Trade became its lifeline. Efficiency became its identity. The government didn't just build roads, it built systems. It didn't just attract companies, it built confidence. Investors trusted Singapore because rules were clear, contracts were honored, laws were enforced. Corruption was punished, talent was rewarded, performance mattered more than background. Meritocracy became national culture. Students were pushed to excel. Teachers were highly trained. Standards were never lowered. Failure was studied. Success was replicated. Military service was introduced. A small nation built a strong defense, not to threaten, but to deter. Security created confidence. Confidence attracted capital. Capital created jobs. Jobs created stability. Stability created growth. Public housing wasn't just shelter. It was social engineering. Different ethnic groups were integrated into the same neighborhoods. Unity was designed, not left to chance. Green spaces were protected. Urban planning was futuristic. Even as skyscrapers rose, trees were planted. Singapore became known as a city in a garden. Technology was embraced early. Digital infrastructure expanded rapidly. The government adapted before disruption arrived. From financial crashes to global pandemics, Singapore responded with speed and strategic precision. Reserves were saved for difficult times. Planning was measured in decades, not election cycles. And slowly, the world began studying Singapore. Leaders visited. Economists analyzed. Students researched. How did a tiny island outperform giants? The answer wasn't luck. It was leadership. It wasn't resources. It was resilience. It wasn't size. It was strategy. Singapore didn't wait to be saved. It engineered its own rise. And in doing so, it redefined what a nation can become.